Hello, I'm Larysa, happiness archaeologist, and we are here at the Whole Heart Ranch in Colorado about to learn from Laure. So, can you tell us about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thank you for having me. I'm really excited about sharing my story or about Ayurvedic medicine or Ayurveda with your audience. So, my name is Laure Carter, and as you can guess by the accent, I am French American. I was born in the US in South Florida, but actually grew up in France as well as in the French West Indies. I was really fortunate growing up to have a mom that was really open minded and basically a bit of a hippie. And so I was introduced to yoga at a very early age. I was about 13 years old, so 40 years ago. And yoga and Ayurveda, which literally means the science of life or the knowledge of life, are often called sister sciences because they are often practiced together. So actually, whenever we had a issue, a physical issue, what have you, my mom would go see an Ayurvedic doctor, not necessarily a physician, unless it was something a little bit more serious. So I've always um, grown knowing that there was Ayurveda and that there was a different way of helping myself when I was out of balance. And so many years later, I experienced some degree of imbalance. I experienced some health issues that guided me back to Ayurveda. But this time around, I decided to actually learning in depth and studied it for over 5 years and became what you would call a clinical Ayurvedic specialist and help other women get this knowledge, this wisdom, and apply it in their lives.
That sounds wonderful. And I remember you mentioning something about the working with doctors or helping their patients.
Mhm. Yes, especially with doctors who are open-minded, because what they understand is that Western medicine, allopathic medicine, is really good at taking care of the symptoms, which we need. We don't want to be in pain all the time. We want to be able to take care of the pain and then be able to get more at the root cause. And so Ayurvedic medicine looks at the root cause. And some examples of what we call root cause are what we eat, how we eat, our relationship with food, and also how we live, our lifestyle, how balance or out of balance our lifestyle. Those two things affect our health and well-being from an Ayurvedic perspective. So they really mesh well together because there's this immediate relief, and then there's this okay. So now then let's create long-term relief.
That sounds so hopeful. And can you tell us about your cooking training?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that I bring into my Ayurvedic practice is cooking. I'm French, so food plays a big role in my life, and uh, I really realize when it comes to unhealthy habits, it's mainly in the West we have challenges in our relationship with food. Um, and sometimes people understand that if you talk in terms of emotional eating, but really it's also how we look at foods because there can be emotional eating when we look to foods to uh, suppress, to I don't like the word soothe because we've never really soothed our emotions with food. We actually suppress them so that we don't feel them. But there's also the disconnection. Oh, food is just to keep me alive, and any type of food will be okay. And that's not really the role of food. Actually, food has an energy, a depth, I would even say a spirituality because it doesn't just keep our bodies alive, it also affects our thoughts, our beliefs, how we relate to one another. And because food comes from nature, and how we relate to each other is really how we are comfortable in the world around us and how we can really enjoy each other and like this beautiful animal who's coming to, say hello to us. I mean, that's nature, this connection we have with animals as well as the world around us. And I have found that people who really have a wonderful connection with animals are also really able to have a connection with other human beings pretty well.
Well, that's wonderful. We're learning how important it is to work with nature and kind of allow nature and not resist and kind of just let things flow. Can you share with us, we've got our American ways of doing things. What would Ayurveda say? What would be a few things that we could maybe incorporate in our life or learn about that could help us and we might not realize because of the way we've been brought up?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, by the way, it's not just an American thing, it's a Western thing. Um, and truly, from an Ayurvedic perspective, I think the way that Ayurveda can help us is by what we were talking about, our reconnection with not only our outer nature, but also our inner nature. Um, I tend to believe that the reason why we are experiencing, especially right now, so much um, ill health, dis-ease, is because we are pressuring ourselves to always achieve, do, and never really being with ourselves. Or when we are with ourselves, we're doing something. We're watching TV, or we're playing game, or we're reading a book. And so one of the things that is incorporated in Ayurvedic medicine is actually just sitting with ourselves. You could call that um, sitting prayer, you whatever you call it, meditation or meditative technique, just to really be with ourselves, but also with what in Ayurveda we consider the most important part of ourselves, which is our inner being, our spirit, really. So I believe that if people took more time to just be, they would be able to experience a little bit more balance in their lives. In terms of really practical things, some of the things that we've gotten away from is, for example, the times that we eat our foods. So look about 100 years ago, maybe what your grandparents used to do. Back in the day, we wouldn't, dinner was referred more to what we had midday meal. And we called dinner, what we call dinner now, end of the day meal, we called it supper. And the supper is the English word connected to the French word souper, which is connected to the word soup. So in the evening, I'm not saying eating necessarily a soup, but eating less, which is really challenging because we've gotten so far away from this. Now, dinner is actually the time when family members gather after a long day at work or a long day at school, and it's the family meal, and it's a large meal. But in terms of how our bodies react to this large meal, is that it's really heavy to digest at a time of the day or the night when our digestion is not as strong. So the end result of that is an accumulation, a buildup of undigested food waste that might also create some toxins in the body and make it difficult for our body to naturally detox itself. So that will be a really practical, if people could bring it to themselves, into their lives, the idea of eating a less heavy meal. You can still enjoy family time together, but in front of a less heavy meal in the evening, it would make a tremendous difference in the way that they would feel.
And I remember you mentioning in class about salad that, we're so used to having salad first. Why do they do it differently?
Yeah, well, simply because raw foods in general, not just from an Ayurvedic perspective, but raw foods is a lot heavier or more difficult to digest. So in Ayurveda, first of all, salad is not a meal. That's also something that is very Western, you know. I'm gonna have a big salad for lunch. It's not really a meal. You want something with much more nutrients. But if you do have a salad, you want to have the salad at the end of the meal so that it's easier for your body to digest it.
And then fruit, how does that work?
So, from an Ayurvedic perspective, it is best to eat fruits on an empty stomach and to not eat anything else with fruits, simply because fruit actually is a little easier to digest, so it digests faster. And so, if you ate something else, whatever takes longer while it's being digested, fruits will actually tend to ferment, and that will create, for some of us, some embarrassing situations.
Plus tummy aches.
Plus tummy aches, yes.
And so you work with what types of people?
Yeah. So I work with women, especially women over 40. So when they are going through transitions with their hormones, especially during this time, I have found that many women tend to suffer with digestive issues, with weight gain, and oftentimes I'm not really sure why it's happening or connected to this time of their lives, the transition into perimenopause. And the truth of the matter is, yes, our hormones change, but how we've been living, how we've been experiencing our lifestyle. Yeah.
So if people want to take your program, take your class, work with you, how do they find you?
Simply by going on my website. They can also find me on LinkedIn or on social media. And it's Laure, Laure, Carter, Carter.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And highly recommend this class. If you were here to hear all the comments, not only do I love Laure's energy, but she is beloved by this whole group. So if you have the opportunity to work with her, highly recommend learning these things. So thank you for tuning in. I'm Larysa of LarysaV.com, Happiness Archaeologist. And thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you for having me, Larysa. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.